My name is Marissa Stahl. For those of you who don't know or aren't familiar with me, I am the president of the USC Young Alumni Council. And just before I get into a little spiel about what the Young Alumni Council is, I'm just going to go over a couple housekeeping things. I recommend for you to have the best experience to turn your screen into speaker view, so that way you will see the person who's talking and get familiar with their face and kind of put a face to that name. If you do have any questions throughout this event, you can put them in the chat. We will have a section at the end for question and answer. But if something just comes to the top of your mind and you just want to put it right then so you don't forget, go ahead and put it in the chat. Once we get to the Q&A, we will call on people and we will ask you to ask your question yourself. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself, or we can unmute you and you can ask the panelists themselves. And like I mentioned before, if you weren't in the event yet, we would love to see your face and put a face to your name as well. So we invite you to turn your video on. Totally fine if you're not comfortable with that, but I'm sure the panelists would love to see who is asking the question as well, so we can make it feel as much of like a real event as possible. So just a little bit about the Young Alumni Council. We represent all young recent graduates who are age 35 and under. You don't have to have just graduated in 2020. I'm considered a young alum and I graduated in 2012. I also graduated from the School of Dramatic Arts, like some of our panelists, with my acting emphasis in theater or in acting emphasis in theater. I don't know what I'm saying. With my emphasis in acting and a minor in the cinema school. And we really invite you to check out what we're doing. You can follow us across our social media channels at USC Young Alumni on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll always post there when we're doing events. We're going to have a lot more digital events coming up in the fall that we're excited about. A lot going to be probably in partnership with other groups like we're doing this evening. So we are really excited and we hope you guys join us for some of the other ones that we have coming up. Let me see. So this evening, we're only going to be talking about graduation and getting advice. Please don't ask our panelists to get you a job. I'm sure they would love to give you information on that, but and help any way that they can, but they're usually not even in HR, so they don't have direct control over that. We're only going to be covering those topics. If you have something else that is in general about Young Alumni or the Alumni Association, you can reach out to us or the USC Alumni Association itself on their social media channels or via email. So to get started, I'm going to introduce tonight's proctor. We have a 2020 recent graduate that we are super excited about, Makela Bijawat, and she graduated from, kind of like me, the School of Dramatic Arts, where she received her BA in theater with an acting emphasis and a minor in the cinema school. She was heavily involved as an actor, musician, writer, director, and producer. Makela also created a theater company on campus where she directed and produced plays, worked on several short films through the School of Cinematic Arts as an actor and behind the scenes. So Makela, you can take it away.
Hi everyone. So I'm going to introduce our wonderful panelists today. I'm going to start with Trace. Trace Gaynor is a musician and creator who graduated from USC in 2014 with degrees in broadcast and digital journalism, marketing, and cinematic arts. He co-founded the Filipino-American vocal group, the Philharmonic, where in addition to performing, he serves as the media director. He manages their social media accounts, YouTube channel, and all digital campaigns. He is also a weekly host for Teo News, where he helps to highlight Filipino-American news stories. And next, Adrienne Visnick is a BFA acting graduate of the USC School of Dramatic Arts. She works as an actor, singer, and producer and creates events to celebrate creatives in entertainment. As a performer, she has worked in TV, film, commercials, and theater, and she currently serves as the SDA rep on the USC Alumni Board of Governors. Sarah Patelos graduated from USC in 2013 with a degree in business and entertainment. She currently leads business strategy for Spotify's artist and label services team in New York, and she helps to launch high-profile programs on behalf of the music team. She recently led the global relaunch of New Music Friday, the playlist, and spearheaded COVID-19 response initiatives to support creators. Micah Cyrus is a screenwriter who graduated from USC with a BA in Spanish and a minor in cinematic arts. And in June of 2018, he earned a certificate in professional screenwriting from UCLA School of Theater and Film. He currently serves as a staff writer for season three of the CW drama All American. He previously worked as a writer's assistant on the first 2 seasons and on season 2 of Step Up and the Fox medical drama The Resident. And lastly, Jason Lubin is a 2009 graduate of the USC School of Cinematic Arts and currently serves as the president of 10, which he will tell you about in a second. He founded the lit management company First Story Entertainment in 2018, and he works as a manager-producer there. And he previously worked extensively as a development executive, serving as the head of production and development at Linda Ops Productions and story editor in the motion picture group at Lionsgate. So, Jason, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mikola. So I am the president of the Trojan Entertainment Network, 10 for short, and we are officially under the USC Alumni Association. We are a group for anyone who is an alum of USC, doesn't matter what school within USC you attended. We obviously have a lot of majors from SDA and SCA, but any school, and if you now work in entertainment, we'd love to see you. You can go to our website, www.uscten.com, and sign up for our mailing list there, which is primarily how we reach out to people about our events. So we encourage you all to join and hope to see you at future events.
I'm going to start off with our panelists by asking them, after they graduated, as most of us 2020 grads are right now, after they graduated, what was their journey like from graduation to getting their first job, and how did they come by that job? So if any of you guys want to take it away first.
So my first real job out of college I was an assistant for a vocal producer that I actually got through the Annenberg list they send out every week about different job postings and things. And that internship turned into a full-time position after graduation. And I was with the Philharmonic, the group I perform with. We were just starting out, so we weren't full-time yet, but we were still flying out on weekends or having shows here or there and doing different performances. But having the flexibility of a job that I kind of carried through college was the kind of the branch before I could really take the leap and do the full-fledged performing thing. So it was through USC.
I can go. I'm Sarah, for those that didn't get the introduction. So right after I graduated, I immediately started with an apprenticeship role at Fox Sports. So I worked for the then COO and co-president of Fox Sports, Randy Freer. He then went on to become the president of Fox Networks Group, and then most recently was the CEO at Hulu for a while until just recently. I came about that role similarly through an internship that I'd actually gotten through USC. There was a part of Fox Sports that was called USC Sports Properties that was working directly with USC Athletics to essentially monetize USC Sports Properties, so bring to life the Coliseum and brand a lot of those initiatives, or build the Audi suites, things like that. And so I got the internship because I was pretty connected through USC Athletics because I was a song girl while I was at USC. And then that internship, through there, I had met Randy and was offered the apprenticeship. So that turned into a full-time role at Fox Sports Digital after that in business operations.
I'll go next. I actually had a few admin jobs before I eventually landed at a company called Summit Entertainment. They produce all the Twilight films and then eventually got acquired by Lionsgate, where I worked for a total of 4 years. And then I decided to segue into writing because I was running away from it, to be honest. And once I went through a program at UCLA through their professional writing program, I finally eventually got a job right after graduating from that program as a writer's assistant on The Resident.
I was a floater at Lionsgate about 6 months after graduation, and I found that it was just a posting on entertainmentcareers.net. I think it still exists, which is just kind of one of those aggregators of entertainment jobs, and applied. And it was kind of a cool kind of first opportunity because you kind of saw, you covered desks, you kind of saw the company as a whole. So obviously I was interested in getting into the creative side, but it was kind of a good, well-rounded experience before getting there.
My first job out of USC was a national commercial for Gorilla Shipping Tape, and talking to a monkey as a college graduate moving out of college. And I got that job through my manager, who I was auditioning with, that I had actually met through a connection of a family friend that I went to USC with. So that was my first job, while also working as a nanny at Jessica Biel's restaurant in Beverly Hills. So you got to do a little bit of everything.
Cool. Thank you guys. So I guess now, with the pandemic, a lot of those internship to job roles have either frozen or kind of ended for now. So I guess for people who have just graduated, what would you suggest as like ways to keep themselves financially stable and in a way that we can still do creative work as well as keep the bills paid?
I'll start. So yeah, I mean, I definitely have a lot of empathy for those going through this. I think the only positive there's a lot of positives, and I think silver linings that'll come out of this pandemic, but I think at least you can rest assured that everyone's in this together and having some version of an experience that is less than ideal. But definitely recent graduates, I empathize with you. And I think even more so, folks are willing to mentor and support in any way that they can. So definitely leverage the USC network to connect with people in your prospective industries. As far as internships and roles freezing, I know at Spotify, we've kept a lot of our internship programs open because it's been such a amazing way to introduce new talent into the organization. But I know a lot of companies are, very understandably so, doing hiring freezes or slowing down hiring. So it's definitely a real issue. I think the one good thing about now more than ever, particularly even from when we graduated, is the fact that there's a lot of there's a huge gig economy. So particularly if you're creative and you have maybe social media management experience, or you're a graphic designer, or sort of any of these skills that you can leverage, even if you don't plan to do them full time, it's a really great way to try to find some part-time work that you can invest in and continue to build your resume doing while you continue to look for full-time jobs. I think also, like Adrian's story, I used to babysit as just a way to keep money coming in while I was looking for jobs, or even to subsidize my first salary. So I think it's really, no job is too small, or you shouldn't be ashamed to kind of take on work that helps pay the bills while you're looking. But I think there's a lot you can be doing during this time between now and getting that first job, to just continue to invest in the fields that you're interested in and continue to gain experience, be that through gig work, internships, etc.
I was just gonna say, yeah, when I left my last job a year, 9 months ago to start my own company, I knew it was going to be a little while before definitely the company was going to make any money, let alone fully subsidize my extremely high standard of living. And so I looked at it as like, luckily I had some savings that could last me a little while, but just in case that this, that the company took a while to get off the ground, the longer I can extend that, the better. And similar to all of you right now, as you're kind of waiting for that first job, I tutor, I, do writer workshops, taking advantage of, the skill set that I have based on previous experiences. You guys all attended USC. You're obviously very educated people. Leverage that for whatever case, just to kind of extend the money a little longer to build those relationships and get that first time job, I think is very important.
I think if you're graduating with a creative degree this year, I think something that's really great about that is that you're a storyteller and you're adaptable. And I think when you're graduating with a creative degree like that, you can look at something like marketing, or you can look at something like graphic design, or you can go into there's so many free classes right now too, with everything that's happening. A lot of people want to offer their expertise. So I would look into classes like at General Assembly or different places like that are offering these beautiful tools to better use your skills. You never know where that's going to lead you to a different job, because if you're coming first and foremost saying, I'm an actor, but I also do this, it's a very good way to look at it right now.
Add to the gig economy thing, as like a freelancer, it's definitely something that I go through quite a bit. Is just every day you're looking for different gigs to keep yourself going, and especially now, when I think it's really important when you're looking for jobs, is to really spend half of your time looking for gig work and half of your time looking for something that's more permanent. And having that separation between the two will help you realize like what you really want to be doing and what you can be doing just for your next paycheck, you know? And so really focusing on the two different aspects was, I think, really important now.
So, I mean, going off of that, so like in terms of freelancing, I know especially probably for Adrian as an actor and Trace, you as a performer, how have you dealt just throughout your career with the uncertainty of not having a 9 to 5 to rely on, just like a constant thing? Like, how do you manage that?
You never really get used to it. It's just because, especially now, you know, my entire career up until this point has been reliant on crowds of over 50 people. So you have to prepare for moments like this, you know, and it's important that you have these backup things that when you don't always have like Philharmonic shows to rely on, or when for example, you have to find day jobs that will bend to the schedule of what you're looking for. For example, I worked for a bit at Universal Studios and I sang in the theme park, you know, and like that's an example of something that keeps my vocal chops up, but at the same time, like is very flexible. It's just whenever I can pick up shifts, and there always will be, it might be hard to find, but there will be something that can bridge the gap between that stability and still keeping you slightly satisfied. While theme parks isn't the most glamorous performing job, it's definitely something that I had in my back pocket for in case I didn't have a Philharmonic show, because we did a lot of colleges. And so over the summer, when we weren't performing in colleges, I would go sing at a theme park. And it might seem hard to find, especially now, but there will be something that has that balance for you.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. I think one of the best things you can learn is how to enjoy the moment that you're currently in, because it's like Christmas Day when you get to go to set, but you have to know how to also prep for the moment that you're going to have after that. So you have to know how to enjoy it, but also be looking for the next job.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one more thing that I'm going to add that might be a little more practical. And when you are a freelancer, one thing that I've learned from the very beginning is I always just like pretend that 1/3 of the paycheck I just don't have and I set aside. And so that just never happened. And so that way, when there is something, maybe I don't have as many performances in a month, I still have that money that I never saw to begin with.
So Micah, actually, I know like a lot of people on here probably are really interested in screenwriting. And I know that also that is kind of an unstable thing until you have to, it's self-discipline, right? A lot of it.
Yep.
So how have you been able to keep yourself disciplined and also have the financial stability?
Yeah, sure. Now I'm definitely more comfortable because I'm on a staff, but before this, I was, a writer assistant. You're not making a lot of money. So I would actually find odd jobs that I could still lend to my creative outlet while making money. So for example, I read for the Blacklist. If you guys don't know, it's an online source where you can submit your scripts and get ratings. So that was great because I was, earning money as well as flexing my muscle, and it helped with writing as well. And I'll go into later because before this, as you guys heard in my blurb, I was working in admin as an assistant in entertainment before even becoming a writer's assistant. And even then, I had to manage my time very well because that was a strict 9 to 5, and I also had to write afterwards. So a lot of what Tracy was saying earlier about like going between both, like that's part of it. It's like having your creative, but also paying the bills is important, and it's just about really being diligent with your time. So my advice would be to find the thing that is going to allow you to have your creative outlet while still being able to maintain and pay your bills.
I'll segue to a different question then. So a lot of you guys have explored stuff that was completely outside of your major or slightly outside of your major. And I'm curious, I know actually, Micah, what you were just talking about, I noticed in your bio, it said you were working in international film distribution for Lionsgate. And like, I know all of you guys have something similar. You've done something outside of your major. So my question would be, what made you want to explore those things? And what advice would you give to someone who wanted to explore stuff that they maybe felt like they were unqualified for based on like what they studied?
I definitely think that the major is really relevant right now when you've just graduated and you have only a little resume to kind of build off of and speak to and feel kind of confidence in pursuing careers in that field. However, as you go along, the major matters less and less and less, and you start cutting it off your resume along with your GPA. It just really doesn't matter. And so I think if you can kind of adopt that mindset now and just actually think about, your major as something that you dedicated yourself to for a short while, and it either taught you what you wanted to do, what you don't want to do, or maybe what you're passionate about. I know people that studied philosophy just because they wanted to, and now they work in finance or something totally different. I think it's really just about having the confidence of taking maybe what you learned in school, finding the kind of technical or tangible skills that you feel you can empower and leverage to apply to whatever job you're pursuing, but kind of rest on your laurels that no one really cares. And after you kind of get a little bit more experience under your belt, you can start to cut that if it feels really different from where you're going. So I think it's all a confidence and mindset thing, really.
I think it's two things. I think one, I totally agree with everything on kind of the confidence of it. Like, one, don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. Show them why you should be doing what you're doing. And you want to be a writer, who cares if you've never written, like if you never took a writing class before, you have a story to tell. And I think that's why you need to be a writer, because you have stories, or you have a way of telling stories that is important to get out there. So I think that's that element of it. And also, like, the world changes, right? So, I think it's about taking the things you have done and utilizing it, right? You've been my writers, like, I represent a bunch of writers, and I'm always like, what is the interesting thing in your past that makes you who you are, or that's going to make your approach to this story different than the writer next to you? It's not because you took a screenwriting class at USC, because, there's a lot of you that have taken screenwriting class at USC that now are successful writers. But what makes you different is where you grew up, or what you were involved in at school, and utilizing that to show how you are a stronger individual because of that.
And to add to that, I think one thing when I remember thinking this when I was first applying to jobs outside of graduation, because a lot of what I was applying for was music. And I think my broadcast and digital journalism degree was confusing to see from applying for music jobs. And so I would flush out the things I did in college that were music related, which was my a cappella group. And so I felt weird writing my resume, and like the chunk of it being an extracurricular activity I did. But at the same time, that had to be what I stood out with. Like I wouldn't have gotten my foot in the door if I'd say, I'm a journalism major, but I'm doing music now. And so my advice would be for tailor your college experiences. If you're applying for a job, you clearly you probably did something with it, before that time, and whatever you had at USC that like perked your interest in it, put it on the resume. Let them know that you have some sort of, even if it's not your major, if you have any experience with it at all, show that in your resume, even if it seems weird that your a cappella group is the same level of importance as your major.
I've done so much free community building work, and that work has only led me to be able to work for marketing for a production company right now. They saw, and I also partnered with someone that got her degree in Annenberg, and made sure that like my resume looked attractive to what they were doing. So I think if you're able to kind of look around you and see what you have in your immediate network, you're going to find so much.
Use what everything everyone's saying, use what you have in your toolbox to get that job. So for me, getting that job at Summit Entertainment, I worked in international film distribution. I was a Spanish major. I knew I wanted to be a writer, but I knew I also needed to segue into TV and film somehow. And so I said, there's a job at international in distribution, and the department that I interviewed and worked for dealt with Latin American content. So I applied for the job, and first question in the interview was, "Do you speak Spanish?" And I flooded it out of the door, and that segued me to be able to get in that door. And if you guys have put the pieces together, Jason and I are both assistants at Lionsgate. Now he's my manager. So you never know also along the steps along the way that will lead you to the people who are going to become your village. So it's very important not to think that just because it's a little bit outside of the box, it won't lead you to better things, because it can, and use what you have to your advantage.
So actually going off to the networking thing that we were kind of getting at a little bit, in terms of utilizing the people in your network, I guess, what's a good way to to utilize a connection if you want a job? Like, how do you ask for a referral?
if you see a job that you want, what would be the best next steps to take in terms of utilizing your network?
My advice, I use LinkedIn a lot. And I think kind of the key thing is always know what the experts in your industry are doing. I know it's different for acting than it is on kind of the more business side. But what I really like about LinkedIn is the ability to see what level connections people are. So what you can do is, let's say I want a job at Disney, or I guess Disney is a big company, but let's say Disney Consumer Products. I can go on the Disney Consumer Products page, try to find the people who are probably the hiring managers in that department, and see if I have a mutual connection with those people, because everything is about referrals. And if you have a good relationship with that person that's connected, you can ask them to float your resume along or put in a good word, which is always kind of helpful advice. I think that's kind of really key for jobs. I think for just kind of general networking, ask anyone for advice. People are happy to talk about themselves. And I think that's the key, is never email someone. And I'm annoyed when people email me and they're like, hey, I saw this job posting, can you help me out? And I've never met them before, or like haven't talked to them in years. But if anyone reaches out and say, hey, I'm changing jobs, or I'm looking for a job, I'd love to pick your brain, I'll give them the time, and I'll end up doing the same thing that they want me to do anyway. It's just kind of how you frame it.
I'll add to that. I've been on both sides of this. So I've both leveraged my network and also been on the receiving end, particularly later in my career now, of people reaching out via email, Instagram, LinkedIn. People find their ways. A couple of things, kind of having been on both sides, I think everything Jason said is kind of spot on, where it's really about how you frame it. I think you need to find a connection if you don't have one. Referrals really can make or break. I can't recall a job that I've gotten not through knowing someone. And that's not to say that I just reach out coldly and they just say, sure, I'll refer you. It's through proven work and someone that was willing to vouch for me, to introduce me to someone. And then I went for coffee with them, and then they were willing to send me a referral. So you really do have to put in the work if you're the person asking, and find that reason that you're connecting, whether you were part of the same club, or you're from the same hometown, or you went to USC. But I get a lot of LinkedIn messages now, and sometimes I'll go weeks without checking them. So I would be fine if that person sends me an email too and says, hey, I reached out to you on LinkedIn. And so it's really about trying to find that connection and the reason for reaching out. And to Jason's point, I think the stroke of ego does work, of, making sure that you've done a little bit of research, either about the company or them, of why you chose them to reach out to, whether it's, hey, this is sort of the field I'm looking to go into, and you seem to have an amazing background in it, whatever that kind of hook is that you're explaining to them why they chose you, so it doesn't feel like they're just shooting off a million emails, in my case, to find someone at Spotify that will get on the phone with them. It's just too impersonal, and it doesn't create that connection, or that, it's harder for me to justify taking time out of my day to meet with that person. But if someone comes to me with a story or a connection or a friend of a friend, I almost always will make the time to hop on the phone with them. And most companies offer referral bonuses. So you're really kind of doing a mutual favor for each other. If they end up getting you a job through their referral, sometimes they get a little kickback. So that takes a little bit of the guilt out of it, I think, too.
I'll add in, as an actor, I think it's really important also to keep a crazy Excel sheet on your computer. Take advantage of having the opportunity to have Excel. I'm sure that works for every career, but every audition I've ever gone on, every casting director I've ever met, so that I'm able to see what they're currently working on and see who I've actually met. Because in that moment, there's moments where I've gone to an audition, I can't tell you what happened in there, but I know that I've gotten good feedback, and I can go back and look and see what's on my Excel sheet and who I've met and what's in my network. So just the tools that you got to know that you have.
So in terms of, like, if you have an Excel sheet like that and you're making a list of all the people you've met, then when would you send a message to them immediately saying, like, thank you for meeting with me, or like, how do you use that later on if it's, if you feel like it's been too long to contact somebody?
Yeah, I always send a thank you afterwards. I don't send it on paper because I just don't think that that's necessary for their office space. And I always make sure that I think you have to make sure that you are being genuine with your responses. So I think as long as you are reaching out as a genuine person, there's no harm. And also I think connecting with your reps and telling them who you know, that's how you can best use your Excel sheet, is actually saying like, hey, I've gone in for this person, especially if you're switching reps, which happens so often when you're an actor. You have to say, oh, I've gone in for this person and this person and this person. This is how I can help you, and this is how I can leverage, and we can all work as a team in tandem.
Mm-hmm.
I find that an article or a mention or something that you had talked about in conversation is a good way to like reconnect with that person. So if you say, hey, you know, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for the time. That's Adrian's first email. And then months pass and there's another reason to reach out. Thinking of something that again gives that reason for reaching out. And of course it should be genuine, but something that's just connecting that again. And it also kind of gives that reason for reaching out. It gives you a little bit more to talk about rather than just like trying to kind of keep a relationship connected when maybe there's nothing to really like keep that going.
Exactly. It's
Right.
like making sure that you have like an actual, like you're working on a show or you're working on like something very specific that they can be like, oh, she's working. Like, let's continue forward. Yeah.
Yeah, like finding something that you could mutually be interested in with that person. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I would say congratulating them if anything good happens to them. They have a movie come out, they have an article on Deadline. Hey, congrats on this. Just sometimes just being in the mail in their inbox is progress for you. Because like the number of people that reach out to me, I'm not thinking of them on a regular basis, but they pop in my inbox. Oh yeah, I wonder what they're up to. Or oh, good to hear from you. And I remember them next time there's an opportunity or anything. It makes me just want to reach out again. So I think a lot of people are really scared of like, oh my God, I'm gonna annoy them so much. Like sending one email after 4 months is not annoying. Like annoying is 5 emails in a day, but you know, checking in every 3 months, 6 months, I think is just smart practice to be right. You're trying to build a relationship beyond simply the person who needs something every so often.
Yeah. Going back to like networking, but also marketing, I think Trace, you could also speak to this. I'm wondering, Instagram has become like a huge part of networking as far as I know. And so I guess, how do you utilize Instagram to build your network? And for those of you who are older, how have you guys adapted to a new business model kind of marketing yourself? Not
It's
necessarily.
funny you say that, because when everyone was talking about like, oh, just email them or LinkedIn, like I think specifically for like music or like for like people that could put the Philharmonic into other positions, you know, like Instagram is huge. And to like the casual like email every 4 months, for me, what I do is I just like every time their picture comes up on Instagram from the group account, you know, and just like, even if it's not necessarily something huge, it's like, hey, like I see you did something amazing. Like, here's my name again. It's something that just very casually, they're always in the back of your head, you know? And so especially for this industry, I think Instagram just being very liberal with what you like from your account that you're trying to brand, you know, can go a super long way. And responding to every story of someone, you know, just like it doesn't have to be fake, but, you know, just try to keep your name like that's something that they recognize.
I think I'm probably the oldest one in here, so email is usually best for me. But I do want to go back a little bit to tell you guys, like I took a bit of an unorthodox approach in terms of getting into a writer's room. And what Adrian said about Excel spreadsheet, I actually took that similar thing and I did a Google Docs spreadsheet. And I just cold emailed about 60 writers, showrunners, anyone at production companies as I was navigating through Deadline of writing all the trades. And anytime a project was in development, I would try to find an email or contact on that show. And I had a very short 3-sentence email explaining to them that I just graduated from a program at UCLA and I was looking to get into writer's room. And of those, I emailed about 60 people. And of those 60, I got 3 responses. And of those 3 responses, I got an interview that landed me the job on The Resident. So don't be afraid to navigate some of those resources. I can't speak to like marketing yourself per se on Instagram, but there are untraditional people too. There are the older people like me who still utilize email and still keep your email. You'll be surprised. Some people do keep the email address on IMDb Pro. And if you don't have that platform and you want to get into TV or film, it is helpful. And as well as Instagram, because I do use it too. So people have slid into the DMs And if it's a short email, a short message that that just hits to exactly everyone's saying to the how if you're connected, I see something that I can connect to. I respond back, and I've met people for coffee and I have mentees that way. So don't be afraid, but definitely keep it short, and don't be afraid to follow up as well, because good people will respond.
So in those emails, just to follow up, when you were writing the 3 sentences, did you attach like a spec script or something that you use?
No, and don't do that. So,
Okay.
because you don't want, that's any industry, like you don't want to force someone to work, but you'd be
Right.
surprised how people, and again, yeah, so 60 and 3 responses to an interview, that's a good ratio.
Yeah.
So, what I did is I just explained. So first sentence was introduce myself. I just graduated from this writing program, and I'm interested in getting into a TV writer's room. So not specifically asking, can you please give me a job, but keeping it open so that that person will naturally help. And then I started off acknowledging, congrats on the pickup, or if it was, in project and development or their series got picked up, that's what I would lead the email with. Just so they know that, at the end of the day, they're going to need, if it's a new show, they're going to need at least, the lowest of the totem pole in the TV writer's room is a writer's PA. So, when they're thinking about that position, you keep following through, and they, eventually they'll ask for your resume if you're following through in a way that's keeping them, thoughtful as in terms of not being too over eager.
What would you say to people how do you leverage your resume maybe when the stuff that you have on there doesn't necessarily apply to what you're applying for, or whether you're interested in something that might not be obvious on your resume?
Say that's the trick of writing a good resume, right? Is how does, and again, I'm speaking from more like job type, not acting and writing. But again, I think it's always, every experience makes you who you are, right? So anything you do, right? If even you're a nanny, like that's scheduling, that's dealing with, problematic personalities, which you'd be surprised how close that is to dealing with 60-year-old CEOs.
Yeah.
It's what has your experience been, and how did you deal with problems? How did you problem solving? Managing time, managing all these things are things that are going to come up again and again, regardless of what the actual job is. And so I think early on, when you're doing your first experiences, getting your first jobs, I think definitely on those types of jobs, finding ways to adapt it to what you're looking for. Also, this is an opportunity to add a bunch of things that maybe you might not think are like real jobs or long-term jobs. Like, did you PA on a student film in college? Did you do musical theater? Did you, I'm sure you didn't just decide, maybe you did, but most people didn't just decide today to go work in entertainment. They probably did something in the past that was in the entertainment field. That's stuff you can add to your resume, regardless of if it was a volunteer, if it was a school thing, or a short-term gig.
I also, when I kind of got to be clearer about what it is that I wanted to do, I looked at kind of where I wanted to go. And again, I do work on the corporate side. So I looked at job descriptions of jobs that I wanted, and I looked at where I was at now and what my resume said today. And I kind of looked at that gap. So both, what could I be describing differently, because something that is in that dream job description actually resonates and it feels like I do have that experience, but it's not currently represented. Or if I feel like the gap is too big from where I want to go to where I am now, what's the next logical step or the next job I can take, or the next experience or club I can join, whatever it is, to get me closer to that, where I, again, have that confidence that I've built that resume over time. So I think it could be daunting when you first come out of school to be like, I was just studying in school and I had a part-time job to help pay the bills and I didn't really have a lot of time to do all these other things. But again, look at what the skill sets are that are being looked for the jobs that you want. What do you already have? And then also think about what things you can do between now and then to build closer to that ideal state.
So when I was going initially for production jobs, I made sure you guys, SC, if you guys, even if, to what Jason was saying, if you crewed on a film of your friends, like I listed all those things so that with those production jobs, that production resume catered towards those jobs. And then when I was entering in corporate America, I made sure to list out and make it read the story to show them that I am applicable for that job. So don't be afraid to have different versions. Just make sure you label them so you send the right version when you're applying for the jobs.
Gotcha.
That's true for acting too. So I have a different resume for my theater auditions than I have for my TV and film auditions. So theater's at the top, or TV and film is at the top.
So I'll conclude my questions with a big one, kind of. What do you do if you don't know what you want right now?
Now is a perfect time to not know what you want, because everything is so questionable right now. And I think one thing that is helpful is that no one really has the answer of what comes next, and so everyone's kind of trying to figure out what the next best move is, and that should give you some sort of comfort knowing that everyone's trying to figure out what you want to do next. And another thing, thinking about when I was just graduating, I remember thinking, like, I just graduated, I was at the top of my game of my senior classes, like taking the most like intense classes in my major. You have to remember that you're going to enter the professional world, and you are like a freshman of the professional world. You know, you don't have to take your dream job at 22 or right when you graduate, you know. And just remember that you're going to be climbing a ladder, and your first job doesn't have to be exactly what you imagined coming out of your senior year. And take the time to figure out what you actually want your dream job to be and work towards that. Like, for example, right now, one thing I've been really interested in, like I'll do a more recent example. For Philharmonic, I was doing a lot of singing, but I did miss like the journalism stuff, or like the production side of that, the digital end. So I took over like our YouTube channel, you know, and so there's room in whatever your first job may be to figure out what you're doing next. And so don't worry if your first job description isn't like my perfect job.
Yeah, I also met with just a lot of people. Like, I was so curious about all the things that I didn't know. I came to school thinking I knew every job that was out there, but you absolutely don't, particularly in entertainment. I mean, I work in strategy and operations, and I don't know if I knew what that meant when I was a student. So I think if you meet with a lot of people and figure out and try to, like, even if it's a notebook or however you keep track, think about what aspects of the job excite you. Like, try to like get in touch with what seems exciting or what seems aligned with what you're good at. Just what are the pieces of what they're describing, or the job description you're looking at, or the writing or acting job you're looking for that feels really true to you, and get comfortable sort of with that kind of path of checking in with yourself of like, does this feel good to me? Or like, is this just something that I want because everyone else seems to want it? But I think really just trying to take those steps and look at all the opportunities, meet people, and try to get closer to what it is that you want to do, it just a step at a time.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
Yeah, definitely meet people, ask questions, educate yourself. I think really good advice is it's okay to change your mind later on. I think a lot of people are so worried about making the wrong decision in terms of what career path they go on that they end up making no decision. And my advice would rather be like, jump into something, see what happens. If you love it, great, you made the right decision. If not, it's okay to change. First of all, the world is going to change so much by the time, right? Like, Netflix didn't exist, or definitely not what it was now when I went to college. And now they're the most dominant player in the game. So, you know, careers change. I didn't think I was going to be a rep, and now that's my chief job. So it's, you know, your career is going to go like this, and you're going to make different changes. So don't be so scared about having to make the decision when you're 22, because what you want when you're 22 is probably not what you're going to want for the rest of your life anyway.
Yeah.
I do just want to say one clarifying thing about USC Young Alumni and the Alumni Association before we jump into the audience questions. First of all, you're automatically a member of the Alumni Association after you graduate. You don't have to join. You don't have to pay any dues. You don't have to sign up, nothing. You're just automatically in. So welcome, congrats. And for young alumni, it is technically 35 and under, but that doesn't mean that after you turn 36, you're kicked out. That's just our generational group. Next is the Second Decade Society, and then there's a group for you throughout your whole entire life. You're always welcome to still join our events. We're definitely not going to kick you out, but that is just that classification. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I'll call on someone to who has put their question in the chat, and we'll ask you to unmute yourself and ask the panelists yourself, and either direct it towards a specific panelist, or you can let them know if it is for all of them to answer. I think this first question is directed at Jason, but Catherine Wong, if you're still with us, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, please do so.
Hi. Yeah, so I guess I asked earlier at like 6:31 p.m. that asking how does one become a talent manager? I don't know if this is super like related or anything, but yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, I think there's a couple. I mean, so my route was a little less traditional. I was a executive for a long time. I started a career as assistant, became an exec, and then decided to shift and start my own company. Which certainly there are a lot of people doing what I'm doing now. But also the other route to go, if you're just graduating and you think that's a path you do want to go on, go be an assistant at an agency or a management company. And, most of those places promote from within. You kind of get a really good experience in terms of what the job is, how it works, who the players are, which is a whole education in itself. And then, hopefully get promoted at that company. Or you could still at that point do what I did, which is go off on your own. But I would recommend, I would not recommend starting your own management company at 22. Just you're going to need the relationships to leverage in order to sell your clients. So I would recommend getting some kind of experience in the industry, whether it's in representation or elsewhere, so you can call upon all those relationships you build when you do come time to sell those people.
Yeah, and a follow-up question, if you don't mind. How, like, do internships or just jobs come through mainly connections, would you say, or would you say like LinkedIn, things like platforms like LinkedIn would help a lot?
Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, the agencies in particular are really good about just like literally most of their websites have like their HR department, and they collect tons of resumes, they interview tons of people. It's almost a revolving door in terms of how it works. Obviously, relationships are always helpful. I don't know what school you were at SC, but like if you were SEA, like I know their career centers, I would recommend going to the career center as well. They have great relationships, and or you can do the whole LinkedIn networking thing, and try to get in that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually don't go to USC, I go to Berkeley. So yeah, thank you so much.
It's the same thing with Berkeley, I would assume. There's a career center somewhere.
Yeah, of course. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so next we have a great question from Abir Siddiqui. Hopefully I pronounced that right, but if you're still with us, go ahead and unmute yourself. I think it's directed towards Trace and Sarah.
Hi, yeah, so my question was really for, I guess, from the perspective of musicians, aspiring musicians and artists who are really trying to build their following and listeners in terms of marketing their music and the tools that are available. In this day and age, I feel like the streaming platforms are really a huge means of building yourself up as, building your brand, and also just kind of like a revenue source for many artists, especially with the pandemic. Performing live at shows, things like that are a lot more limited. So for streaming platforms like Spotify, they're like non-editorial playlists that are sometimes ask for like monthly payments and things like that, and sometimes they're kind of questionable. The main tool that I've seen is like the editorial playlist. So like tools similar to like Google Ads or like repost communities. What can we really do to kind of build our brand?
Yeah, I'll start and talk about
following
the streaming side, and then obviously Trace should chime in as a musician himself. So obviously there is kind of this conversation around how it feels like, you need to get on a playlist in order to be successful. But it's really not totally true, in that I would always recommend, rather than engaging in potentially less than honest business practices of third-party playlists or spending money on advertising, I would really think about spending that time and investment on building your audience and like really building true fans. Obviously, the easiest way to do that is through live performances. I'm sure we can hear more about that. But right now it's tough. But, artists at their core are creative and are finding ways to connect with their fans and really grow their audiences, be it on social, be it through, collaborations with other artists, be it through, working with a team of people, whether that's a publicist, manager, label, you name it. But I really always recommend building true audience and fandoms. There's so much music put out there now. There is a way to pitch to editorial playlists. It's called the pitch tool on Spotify for Artists. I'm sure you're familiar. Always do that, because that's truly the only way Spotify editors listen to music. But I always recommend, invest in true fans, because you could have a hit that ends up on a Spotify playlist, but if the fans aren't there, they won't follow you after that track is done. So it's all about investing in a true fan base. I'll let Trace chime in.
Yeah, I mean, so my first, when you're talking about this, I know that there's like, since social media and music have gotten so close, there's always going to be the chase of like, I'm going to be big on this platform, like I'm going to be the next big YouTuber, the next big Spotify, or now it's TikTok, there's always something to chase. And the end goal is that, like, even if you have 1 million TikTok followers that just found you, like, it won't matter unless they care to see your next thing. And so my first job, when I worked for that, when I was a vocal producer's assistant, my job was to look at his clients and seeing, there was a lot of YouTubers at the time, and they would do covers. And just the way that covers work, you end up getting this small audience. And what my job was to look at the analytics of who was watching this video, how they're watching it, how long they're watching, like when they stopped watching, and take the artists to tweak whatever their next project was to cater to that fan base. And so looking to see, like, if strangely, like if you have a lot of, for example, for us, we had a lot of fans in the Philippines. And so what our next thing was, we're going to look at the Billboard charts in the Philippines. Like, what are these kids looking for? Like, they're all female between age 17 and 22. Like, what are they listening to? And so you can take your creative and whatever you want to do next and build the fan base based on what you're already bringing in and what they're already looking for. And especially with Spotify for Artists, and Apple Music has the same thing, and TikTok has like crazy analytics of who's finding you and how they're finding you and what else they're watching. TikTok, I think now, is like one of the easiest way to build a fan base, because they give you so much information. And so it's catering to what you want to do and still being true to your art, but what the audience you're bringing in is looking for.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. That was very helpful.
That was great. Okay, so our next question is from Kenneth Vuitton Woodall. Hopefully I said that right. These last names.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for sharing all of your experience. I'm interested to hear about your day-to-day jobs, what you guys do on a daily basis. And I have a second question for Jason. What you look for when you are representing people? Like, what are the qualities that you look for in people?
My day-to-day changes constantly, but one thing that I do is I do that thing before where I spend time looking for gig jobs, and then I spend time looking for like more permanent things, and then I work on some like a passion project. And so my day changes every day. But one thing that this is weird, but what I do that I find so helpful is every year I buy a high school planner, like, when they have like the 8 subjects, and I use that religiously, and I would not be able to function without a high school planner. And so that's what I do.
Yeah, my day-to-day, so obviously, again, I'm in a corporate job, so I'm a little bit more structured with timing and everything, but working from home has definitely proved to be a challenge in time management. It's always something I've appreciated, but it definitely adds an additional challenge. So my days consist of what you'd expect, which is a lot of meetings and a lot of emails. But I work across a multitude of projects at any given time. Again, I work across strategy and ops for the music team and our artist and label services group. So I'm typically either brainstorming a project, in the midst of launching a project, or doing some sort of retro on a project. So I'm typically working in cross-functional groups across the company all the time. I start out my mornings by trying to catch up on industry news and also just the general news of the day. The music industry and the entertainment industry moves so quickly and also have to react to culture. So whatever's happening out in the world, we typically have to respond to. So, my past however many months we've been in quarantine now, I was really focused on COVID-19 efforts. And then most recently, the company is also kind of wrapping our heads around just how we can better represent diversity on our platforms, even though Spotify has been kind of committed to that always. So yeah, my day-to-day is catching up on industry news, general news, and then connecting with both my immediate team and hosting cross-functional meetings, and then actually doing work products, which are typically either strategy documents or decks or things of that nature.
For me, being on a writing staff, we meet Monday through Fridays. It's a bit untraditional now because we're doing virtual writers room through Zoom like this, but we're still doing a 10 to 4, 10 to 5 day. And for me as a writer, I also have my own projects, and depending on how you are as creatives, like I work better in the morning. I just know myself, so I just have to be disciplined and getting a good night of rest so that I can wake up early and dedicate a few hours in the morning for my own stuff, as well as making sure I read. We have every day we generate what's called room notes, and those are the notes that a writer's assistant takes that capture all the pitches and thoughts that happen. So making sure that I'm good about time managing so that I dedicate enough time for that, as well as jumping in at 10 and being able to contribute. And then if I have any energy in the evenings, I'll write. And if not, again, it's more important for your brain and also dedicating time to your life as well. But just finding the routine for yourself that works. But that's my day.
I think one thing that's really important is somebody told me to do one thing for yourself, one thing for your home, and one thing for your career every day. And you do multiple of those things all at the same time. But as long as you're being cautious of all of those things, it helps keeps the rotation going.
During the day, it's meetings, calls, emails, trying to find clients' work. And then in the evening is usually when I do all my reading. I'm the opposite. I'm a night owl, so don't call me before 11. Micah does sometimes. But to your second question, what I look for, everyone's going to have a different answer to this, and I hate to kind of give the, you know it when you see it. I think what I really respond well to, I'm a very commercial guy. I came up in the studio system, so commercial type material I respond well to. I think I am looking for the 2020 version or the fresh version of insert genre here. What is the 2020 sexy thriller? What is the 2020 Indiana Jones? What is the 2020 romantic comedy? It's finding kind of the fresh, different, new voice that you can plug into the genres that are tried and true that the studios are looking for. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for on a regular basis. And so I read a client's work or a potential client's work, and I'm like, yeah, I see where this person would be, the types of movies, the types of TV shows that they should be working on, and how I can sell them as kind of a fresh, different version of something that the studios haven't seen before.
A follow-up question about your planner. Do you write your goals in it, or do you just write to-do lists, or like how do you use that?
It's literally 8 subjects. So I scratch out like math, science, English, and I write like Philharmonic, and then I write like the news station I work for, and like I don't know, like right now, one thing I'm really interested in getting into is podcasts. Like I really want to get into like podcast producing, or so like I have like, even though I don't have something every day for it, it's like, what podcast am I going to listen to? How am I going to get forward in that, And so it's just even though like the subjects may change, it's more of like my daily, like what am I going to do towards that goal? And I have 8 goals every day. And then I've tried to do like the line by line, like from 10 to 11, I'm gonna do this, but I always get off, so I've scrapped that. And I just have a general list of what I want to do in my 8 categories every day.
Got it. Nice. That's interesting. Okay, so our next question is from Nabil Saifi.
How's it going, guys? So this is really just a question for anyone, I guess. So I asked, due to the pandemic and not necessarily being able to meet with a total stranger for coffee and really just have a face-to-face conversation, do you think that just like a simple phone call or Zoom call would be like enough to build a relationship and ultimately get someone to refer you for a position?
Thursday. I'll personally say absolutely. I actually typically prefer that the conversation is the first one, a phone call. It not only allows me to go for a little walk as a break from work, but it also just allows me to be a little bit more casual and not be, worried about what's going on in the background. I can step away. So being on the receiving end of that request, I think a phone call absolutely is the right first conversation. Oftentimes too, even in the real world, coffee can just be harder to schedule, especially in LA with traffic. It's just, it's always just a little bit harder to ask for time from that person. I think a phone call is always the right way to go. Or if someone's willing to Zoom, of course, that's another great way just to put a face to the name. But I think connection on LinkedIn and follow up on an email where you have a picture, of conversation, if it flows well, I absolutely think that that's enough, at least for me, to sign off on a referral if it makes sense.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
I think I haven't found that much of a difference between Zoom meetings and in-person coffee. You can talk about the same things. It's the same person-to-person interaction. And I agree. I think it depends. Some people are more willing to do it now because it's a separation from their family or their job or anything else that's going on. Like, I live alone, and so I'm like, anybody that wants to, like, oh, you want to Zoom with me? So I'm not just, talking to a wall for another hour. I think some people appreciate the break that, definitely now that it's offering.
I would say, just professionally, from my experience too, you can always ask and they'll tell you what you're comfortable with. Like, if you ask someone to do a Zoom and they don't want to do a Zoom, they'll just say, yeah, actually, I'm more comfortable with a call, or I'm not going to turn my video on. You can always ask. Okay, so our next question is from Mariah Tsumbas.
Hi guys, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. This is really helpful. I asked a question about reconfiguring cover letters because I've been actively applying for positions posted on LinkedIn over the last couple months, and I haven't had any bites yet. But I was wondering if maybe like the rejections are a sign that I should reconfigure what my skills are in the cover letter, or a different way to market them. And just like, how did you go from receiving rejections with jobs to finding people to bite?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take anything that's happening right now. I take everything that's happening right now with a grain of salt. It is hard out there. There's not as many open jobs, and there's a lot of people looking, right? So it's supply and demand is just not in your favor right now. So, look, it's hard. I graduated in 2009, the last recession, and yeah, it took 6 months. It was tons of resumes, tons of things out there. So I would say just keep trying. I mean, certainly, like, if you want to have other people read it, I think that's really helpful, right? Maybe rather than talking to someone who does have a job, maybe reach out to someone who's a hiring manager at a company that doesn't have anything now, right? If they don't have anything open right now, they're probably have a little bit of time. Maybe, hey, can you read my cover letter and just give me some advice on how to frame this in a way that if you were hiring, you would want to hire me, right? Utilize your network, or the Career Center, right, has people who are experts at this, do this on a daily basis. Maybe they can help you out, design it, just in case that is the case. But I would say, definitely keep trying, and also like what we've been saying all night, leverage the network as much as you can.
Yeah, great, thank you.
I'll add to that really quickly. I just saw someone added this to the chat too. I think also the way you're going about applying can sometimes make a difference. Sometimes hitting a button on LinkedIn, I've found sometimes, and I just know this because people have reached out to me about a role that they see open and I see internally that it's closed, or that the posting is actually, no longer accepting applications. I would always say try to get a referral if you can. So particularly with the USC network, it's pretty easy to find someone within your couple degrees of separation, to find someone that's connected to companies. Again, if these are more independent type jobs or things like that, it may be a little bit more tricky to find that. But sometimes the work isn't actually in the resume or the cover letter itself, but adding context around that. So be it with an introduction through someone that's either there or someone that knows someone, or just, again, having some sort of other connection with them so that they look at the resume. I think it's sometimes just about seeing the resume get seen, not necessarily about them seeing your resume and finding something wrong with it. But to Jason's points about, tactics you can do, of course, you can reconfigure cover letters and resumes. I've personally found that resume is more important than the cover letter. Sometimes people just fly through them. And so I think it's about having the most relevant experience up top. And then I've seen other tactics that I think the Career Center is probably best suited to walk you through, but I've seen some people have like an objective at the top. I've never had this, but it's been interesting, especially if you have a shorter resume, to say, this is a student that I've recently graduated and I am seeking a career in this, just something that's very like stated about what you're looking for and why, and any special unique talents or gifts you bring to that role.
Great. Thank you.
Also, temp agencies can also be helpful. I know some of them are looking for people now for virtual jobs. I actually, in between working for Summit, Lionsgate, and before going into TV writing, I worked for a temp agency. They got me a job at a health and fitness company working in human resources. But that was really helpful because they also have, just in terms of what Jason was saying, like career counseling, they will help you navigate and customize your resume and your cover letters as well. And they're directly connected to their own clients and corporate entities that'll help you find jobs. Especially with right now, like at this point, like if I were in a lot of your shoes, I would just take a job, because that's what I did too. I graduated with Jason in 2008, and the economy was terrible, but we have to live and pay rent. So office team, if any of you are in LA, actually they're global. Robert Half is the corporate entity, and an office team I know exists here, and I think they're across the nation. But I would look into them because that's how I got that job that really helped me through the process.
Great.
Can I add something really quick? I got a really good piece of advice from an STA professor that I think might help. It was Jeremiah O'Brien. He was telling me that instead of looking for checking the positions that are open, finding the companies that you're really passionate about, and then reaching out to just finding the people at those companies and seeing like what they could, like getting advice from them and approaching it like that. Mm-hmm. And then maybe a position, you might be able to like find something that fits better for you.
Yeah. Oh, because that also might like take the pressure off of them.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's not your only option. You don't have to fit into this job description. Yeah, that was just something that helped my mindset at least.
And also, I think our industry, as much, if not more than others, like 80% of jobs never land on something like LinkedIn or an official job board. So, most of the jobs that I've gone on, my first one for sure, but since then, I think everything has been, people knew me or someone referred me. Like that really is the case. So I think that's great advice. Like, what are the types of companies you want to go for? Who are the people that you want to meet with them, sit down with them, and then they have you in mind when a job comes up, then you're one of the 5 people that get interviewed, rather than never, because it never landed on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Good to know.
Kind of on that note of what Michaela was saying, something I was thinking about, I would love each of you to share, advice or the biggest piece of advice that you remember from this time when you were graduating that someone gave you when going into the job market. For me, it was someone that I had worked with at an internship, not my direct boss, but someone else at the company. And he shared with me this experience from when he was in college and saw all of his friends freaking out about, being able to find a job immediately and putting so much pressure on themselves and really building up all of this anxiety. And he just reminded me, you will find a job. I know it may not seem like that in this environment, and that, wasn't even a pandemic. You got into this amazing school. You have graduated from that school. You are talented and you will find a job. So just trust in that. It may take a little bit of time, but just remind yourself of that. But I would love to know from each of you if there's something that has stuck out in your mind from that time.
Yeah, one of the things that stuck with me was, when you graduate, you're going to be around a lot of classmates, and someone will get that dream job. So, like, someone will get the job that you wanted, or there'll be people that you have to be comparing yourself with. And the biggest thing that I took was, if you paid your rent and you were doing an industry that you wanted to, that you had like somewhat thought about, and you bought dinner every night and you still like paid your rent, like you made it. Like you are living the dream of what you wanted before. And so don't look at what your other friends or jobs they're getting or what everyone else. Don't compare yourself, because if you paid your bills, you did it.
I'll say that comparison doesn't stop. So it's really just, you might as well just do away with it now, because it's really just doesn't serve you to look outside your own swim lane. For me, I think the best advice at this stage was just that you don't have to have it all figured out right now. Someone said it earlier, like that first job not being your dream job. Like, of course it's not your dream job, because there's other people that are, working towards things. Or maybe you think it's your dream job, and those people that have it all figured out right out of school, they'll end up totally pivoting. So things change so much in your 20s, and you'll see people start careers in one industry, end up in something totally different. But just like stay true to yourself. You do not have to have it all figured out right now. And I think it's just about like Trey said, just take that step and figure out a job that will help you get closer to what you want, and keep working while you're working. Like keep networking, keep interviewing, keep looking for what it is that you want to do. But yeah.
Exactly. And to Sarah's point, all of that, because as I told you guys before, I've started off working in admin jobs first out. I knew I wanted to get into entertainment, but to keep me motivated, I still continued my creative work. So find a job that will help you pay the bills, but still keep aligned with looking at those other, with your own work. If that's writing, if that's songwriting, keep doing that on the side to keep it building, so that when you do have that opportunity that pans out, you have your stuff ready to go. And don't be unmotivated by the fact that it's not happening right now, especially in such precarious times as we're in right now. Don't beat yourself up, because it'll happen. What everyone's saying, it'll pan out. You just have to keep aligned with the fact that the future is going to be there.
One of the best pieces of advice that I got, there's so many things that you can't control in this industry, and especially right now, but one of the things that you can control are the people that you surround yourself with. People that hold you accountable, people that will help you with your self-tape audition when you get at the last minute, people that you want to network up with, and always being ready to ask above, who are at different stages than you, because those are the people that are going to learn from. But definitely it's the people that you surround yourself with is what you're going to win with at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think a piece of advice that I got, and it could just be a movie quote that I loved, but is the secret to success is being prepared for your lucky break. Like at some point, luck has something to do with it, right? Someone saw your resume, you happen to be at the top of the pile, you met the right person in line. I guess that part doesn't happen right now. But so at some point you have to get lucky, but 90% of people aren't prepared for that moment and aren't going to be able to capitalize on it. So if you do all the groundwork to when that moment happens, when you're with whoever that has a job or is connected to someone that is going to be able to give you that opportunity, that you have all your ducks in a row, that you've written the script, that you've spent the time on, so that when you meet with the person that can read it and do something with it, you're ready to hand it to them. Or you have, you put your resume together, or the people that are going to be able to put in a good word. I think that is so crucial, because a lot of people think, oh, now that someone has given me this opportunity, now I can do the job or be prepared for it. It's got to start way before that.
Thank you, guys. Okay, I think we have time for about one more question. So to Kirsten Vanderbilt.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm currently in Dallas and looking to relocate to LA. What are some advice to kind of build your network out there when you're not in the city, or at least it's been a couple of years since I've been out of USC, how to reestablish those connections, since I can't, move right now, of course.
I would say be doing the things that you're doing right now by showing up at different events that are happening online. I think that one of the coolest things that I've been able to witness is these new connections and new friendships that have been just automatically happening over the internet. And by the time you get back to LA and when everything's safe to actually be around other people, then you'll already have this network that you're building. My event platform that I'm working on right now, we throw parties and online and have writer salons, or have nights where we talk about finances for creatives. And there's people that you can meet on there that you wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to meet right now. So I think showing up just to things like this is really helpful.
It's kind of lucky. I mean, this is a terrible thing that we're all going through, but right now is a moment when you have as much of an opportunity to network with someone as I do, and I could be literally down the street from them. Right? Everything is online. Everything is over the phone right now. So, now's the time. People are doing everything digitally. All of 10 events probably for the rest of the year are going to be digital, which gives an opportunity for people who couldn't normally attend to attend. Same thing with USC and all the events that they're doing. So I think, again, make the most of whatever is given to you and try to capitalize it. Reaching out to people saying, hey, I'm interested in this career path, or I'm interested to hear about what you're working on. Love to pick your brain for advice. And, they're not going to invite you for coffee right now. So Zoom or call it is.
I think that was great. Before we finally say goodbye, I will pass it off and to have each one of you, if you just want to give like one final word of wisdom or encouragement. I'm sure everyone here would love to hear that from you. And just a reminder, follow us on social media. We're both going to be doing digital events throughout the rest of the year. It's an amazing way to meet new people from USC or from any of these communities. The Alumni Association as a whole has an event almost every single day online. So it's a really amazing time to network or just learn from people, especially while you are looking for jobs or maybe looking to increase those skills. But we thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all in the future. But yeah, Jason, I'll just start with you if you want to give one final word of wisdom, and then we'll just kind of go down the line.
Yeah, I would just say everything's going to be okay. Like, we're going to get through this, and it sucks right now. And I understand, right? You want a job, you want to work. It will happen. You'll get there.
I think one of the best things is that you guys showed up here tonight. I think that learning from other people and hearing other people's advice, and everyone's going through the same thing, whether you're graduating just now or you've graduated a couple years ago. So I'm just so grateful to have been in your company. And if you feel like reaching out to me, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, Sarah.
Yeah, like Jason said, this too shall pass. So I think try to enjoy the silver linings of this moment and find what you can do now that you wouldn't be able to if you were in the hustle and bustle of commuting to a job every day. Like, what can you be doing now to get you closer to your goals, but also what can you do to just enjoy this time, because soon enough you'll be sitting at a desk or hopefully on set or something more interesting than sitting at a desk. But just try to enjoy this time. And like Adrienne said, I'm always happy to make myself available as much as I reasonably can to fellow Trojans and folks that are looking to break into the entertainment industry. So if I can be of service, let me know.
Awesome. And Micah.
Yeah, everyone's already saying it. Just keep the faith, keep the hope. This time will pass. Just be specific with your ask of people. For me, reach out if it's if it's getting in touch for just a general thoughts of how to even break in. I'm happy to reach back out. So I'm on Instagram and other platforms like LinkedIn. So don't be afraid to utilize these platforms as well as others to stay connected with people.
Trace, I don't know. Here, there he is. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of said this earlier, but it should be, I know it's like crazy, like to graduate in time like this where you have no idea what to do next. But find some sort of comfort in the fact that no one knows what to do next. And it's going to be kind of a scramble for everyone to figure out how to make this new reality work. And so you're just in the same hustle as not even just class of 2020, but everyone's trying to figure it out right now. And yeah, feel free to reach out by anything on Instagram or LinkedIn.
Awesome. In the recent USC Young Alumni Instagram, we tagged each of our panelists. So if you're interested in finding their handles, you can go there and find them directly. And Mikola, if you have any final words of wisdom, I would love to hear from you as well, to your fellow graduates.
Oh my gosh, on the spot. So I would also say, like, the one thing that I just keep telling myself is that we know that this is going to pass. Like, that's just, it's going to happen. It's not like there is some sort of light at the end of the tunnel that we know is there. So I think what everyone's saying about, like, preparing yourself for that time when the opportunity comes is like a mantra I try to tell myself all the time. You know, when I feel discouraged or I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get a job, you know, the thoughts keep coming up, especially because I'm also alone here talking to a wall. So I think whenever that comes up, I just redirect myself into, you know, I need to, right now I could be doing some creative work, like stop moping, do some creative work. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying, it's difficult. I'm not going to pretend like it's easy. It's difficult, but I think taking every single day as its own and not, you know, not thinking that because you thought you failed yesterday that tomorrow's going to suck as well. You know, like every day is different. So yeah, that's something came off the top of my brain just now. Thank you all for coming. I know I learned so much today and I even feel better about everything as well. So yeah, thank you guys for giving us your advice. And in the chat, David and Aaron posted the links to the alumni page and the USC 10 page. So go ahead and join those, because I mean, I just decided to come to one of the 10 events at one point, and like, then I was offered this opportunity to host this panel. And, you know, again, it's just like, just be nice to people, you know, and just, you don't have to intentionally network with people. I think the way I find success is more of like just trying to get to know people. So yes, that's my ramblings at the end there, but thank you all for coming.
Yes, I think if you think about it more of relationship building and not necessarily networking, the networking will come naturally and you'll get opportunities from those genuine relationships that you build along the way. But thank you so much. I want to say thank you to Jason and Aaron Entertainment Network, and we hope to do more stuff with you guys in the future. And thank you guys all so much for coming, and we hope to see all of you in real life for sure, but definitely via Zoom throughout the rest of the year.